Ladies and gentlemen, there is a divine order in how men were created to lead, protect, and provide. A man is the foundation of his household, the covering of his family, and the anchor of stability. But what happens when the foundation exposes every crack? What happens when the covering has holes? What happens when the anchor is moved by every storm? A man must understand that not everything he knows, thinks, or feels should be spoken. Some things must be kept private, guarded like treasures, because the strength of a man is in his ability to hold wisdom, not in his willingness to share everything. A man must be careful with his deepest fears. The moment you expose what weakens you, you open a door for manipulation, even if unintentionally. Not every woman has the capacity to handle your vulnerabilities with care. You are designed to stand firm, to work through your battles in silence, and to rise victorious without seeking external validation. Finances are another area where wisdom is required. A man's financial situation should be managed with strength and vision, not with worry and desperation. A woman must see a leader who is in control, not a man who is consumed by fear. You do not hide the truth, but you do not burden her with anxieties that she was never meant to carry. The past is gone. Let it go. Speaking about past relationships, former mistakes, or old attachments only opens doors for comparison, doubt, and unnecessary emotional conflict. A wise man focuses on building the present and future, not digging up graves from the past. She needs to see the man you are now, not the history you have left behind. In relationships, men must understand the power of their emotions. The moment you tell a woman exactly how she can hurt you, you have handed over the keys to your peace. Not because she will always use them against you, but because emotions can be unpredictable. A moment of anger or misunderstanding can turn your deepest vulnerabilities into weapons. Strength is in self-control, and wisdom is in discretion. Loyalty is the foundation of character. A man who shares the private matters of his friends, family, or mentors is a man who cannot be trusted. A woman observes how you handle others' secrets to determine how you will handle hers. Keep your integrity intact. Do not be the man who speaks of others behind their backs and expects honor in return. A man's vision is sacred. Not every dream should be spoken before it is built. When you reveal your plans prematurely, you expose them to doubt, opposition, and unnecessary interference. Speak about your success when it is established, not when it is still in the making. Protect your destiny by keeping your strategy private. Above all, your internal battles are yours to fight. No one can complete a man except the Creator who made him. If you are struggling with something, do not seek comfort before seeking conquest. Work on yourself in silence, become strong in your solitude, and then present yourself as a man who has overcome, not as a man still searching for healing. A man's deepest fears and insecurities are the most fragile parts of his identity, and when exposed, they can become tools of manipulation or sources of unintended disappointment. Every man carries silent battles, doubts about his worth, anxieties about failure, and uncertainties about the future. But these are burdens he must learn to manage internally, not wounds he should openly reveal. A man is designed to be a pillar, a source of strength, and a leader in his relationship. The moment he begins to voice every insecurity, he risks shifting the dynamic from protector to dependent. Women by nature seek security, and when a man openly shares his deepest fears, he may unknowingly create a sense of instability. Even if she loves and supports him, she may begin to question whether he is capable of handling life's pressures. It is not that a man should hide his struggles, rather, he must process them with wisdom. A woman may empathize, but if his fears consume him, she may start to lose faith in his ability to lead. Furthermore, human nature is unpredictable. In moments of anger, frustration, or misunderstanding, what was once shared in trust can be used in hurtful ways. Words spoken in vulnerability can be turned into weapons in arguments, leaving a man feeling exposed and betrayed. It is not about distrust, but about understanding the reality of emotions. A man must be selective in what he shares and with whom he shares it. His fears should be brought before God, handled through self-reflection and strengthened through discipline. When a man carries himself with quiet confidence, even in the face of internal battles, he reinforces his position as a leader, a provider, and a protector. A man's financial struggles are a reality he must navigate with wisdom and discretion. Money is one of the greatest sources of tension in any relationship, and how a man handles financial pressure directly impacts how he is perceived by the woman in his life. While honesty is essential, oversharing financial struggles in detail can create unnecessary worry, doubt, and even loss of respect. A woman seeks security in a man, and when he constantly speaks about his financial burdens, debts, or fears of failure, she may begin to question his ability to provide stability. It is not that a man should pretend to be wealthy or deceive his partner about his financial situation. Instead, he must approach financial challenges with a mindset of leadership. Instead of complaining about struggles, he should focus on solutions. A woman will stand by a man who has a plan, but she may grow anxious if she sees that he is overwhelmed and without direction. If a man repeatedly speaks of lack, uncertainty, and financial despair, he unknowingly plants seeds of insecurity in her mind. Over time, she may start to doubt his ability to rise above challenges. Furthermore, discussing financial struggles in excessive detail can shift the emotional dynamic of the relationship. A man should not place the emotional burden of his financial stress on a woman. She may empathize and offer support, but she is not built to carry the weight of his responsibilities. A man must develop the discipline to manage his financial battles internally, seek wise counsel when needed, and focus on strategies for growth. When he leads with confidence and determination, even in difficult times, he reassures the woman in his life that the future is secure regardless of temporary hardships. A man's past relationships are a part of his history, but they should never become a dominant conversation in his present. While honesty is important, there is a fine line between sharing relevant information and overexposing details that can lead to unnecessary comparisons, insecurities, and emotional complications. A woman may ask about past relationships out of curiosity, but that does not mean she needs to know everything. The more a man speaks about his past, the more he invites old shadows into his new relationship, creating room for doubt, jealousy, and even resentment. A woman wants to feel like she is the most valued and cherished person in a man's life. However, when he constantly references his exes, whether positively or negatively, he signals that he is still emotionally attached to his past. Even innocent comparisons can plant seeds of insecurity. She may begin to wonder if she measures up, if she is truly enough, or if she is merely a replacement for someone else. The human mind naturally holds on to details, and once something is spoken, it cannot be taken back. Words about an ex may resurface in moments of conflict, leading to unnecessary emotional wounds. Additionally, revealing too much about past mistakes, betrayals, or regrets can create a distorted perception. If a man shares how he was deeply hurt or betrayed, a woman might unconsciously start viewing him as weak or overly emotional. If he speaks about how he wronged someone, she may begin to question his integrity. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. A wise man acknowledges where he has been, but does not dwell on it. He focuses on the present and future, ensuring that the woman in his life feels secure, honored, and irreplaceable. A man's ability to control his emotions determines the strength of his leadership. When he openly reveals which words or actions deeply affect him, he risks losing a level of authority in the relationship. It is not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be invincible. It is about understanding the power of discretion. The moment a man confesses exactly what wounds him, he unknowingly hands over a tool that can be used against him, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Even in loving relationships, emotions fluctuate. A woman who adores a man today may, in a moment of frustration, use his vulnerabilities in ways she never intended. It may not always be malicious, but words spoken in anger are difficult to take back. If a man has told her that certain words crush his spirit or make him feel small, in a heated moment, she might say those exact words, not because she wants to destroy him, but because emotions can override reason. What was once shared in trust can become an unintentional weapon. Furthermore, revealing emotional weaknesses can alter a woman's perception of a man's strength. Women are naturally drawn to confidence and stability. If a man constantly reacts to her words with visible distress, or shares how much her actions impact his self-worth, she may begin to see him as overly sensitive. Over time, this can shift the balance of respect in the relationship. A man must learn to process his emotions internally, to rise above reactive responses, and to maintain a steady presence even when tested. Strength is not found in revealing every pain. It is found in mastering the ability to stand firm, to lead with wisdom, and to navigate emotional challenges without allowing them to dictate his sense of self. A man's integrity is measured by his ability to keep confidence. When he reveals the private conflicts and secrets of his friends or family to a woman, he not only breaks the trust of those who confided in him, but also diminishes his own credibility. A woman observes how a man handles the personal matters of others to determine whether he is trustworthy. If he easily shares the struggles, failures, or mistakes of those close to him, she may begin to wonder if her own secrets will ever remain safe in his hands. Loyalty is one of the most attractive qualities in a man. A woman respects a man who knows how to handle private matters with discretion. If he constantly talks about his friends' financial struggles, family disputes, or personal failures, it sends a message that he cannot be trusted with sensitive information. Over time, she may become hesitant to share her own vulnerabilities, fearing that they too might be discussed with others. A man should be a protector of the trust placed in him, not someone who exposes the weaknesses of those around him. Additionally, speaking about conflicts within his family can create unnecessary tension in his relationship. If a man repeatedly shares the faults of his relatives, his woman may begin to develop negative feelings toward them, even if those conflicts are temporary. Later, when peace is restored, she may still carry resentment because of what he shared. Family matters should be handled with wisdom, and a man must discern what should remain private and what requires external counsel. True leadership is found in a man who knows how to guard the dignity of those he cares about, ensuring that their struggles do not become casual topics of discussion. A man's vision is one of his greatest assets, and how he protects it determines whether it flourishes or fails. When he speaks too soon about his ultimate plans before they manifest, he exposes his dreams to doubt, opposition, and unnecessary interference. Not everyone will understand his vision, and not everyone will support it. A woman may love and respect a man, but if his plans seem too ambitious or unclear, she may unintentionally question or discourage him. Even a slight hesitation in her response can plant seeds of doubt in his mind, making him second-guess himself before he has even begun. Dreams are fragile in their early stages. They require quiet focus, disciplined action, and unwavering belief. When a man shares too much about his goals before they take shape, he invites external opinions that may weaken his resolve. A woman may ask practical questions, seeking clarity, but if a man has not yet fully structured his vision, he may find himself explaining and justifying rather than executing. The more he talks, the more he opens the door for doubts, both from others and within himself. Moreover, speaking too soon about future plans can create unnecessary pressure. If a man constantly discusses what he intends to do, but has not yet achieved it over time, his words may lose impact. A woman, like anyone else, is inspired by results. If she hears too many plans without seeing progress, she may start to view his ambitions as wishful thinking rather than a concrete reality. A wise man moves in silence, allowing his actions to speak louder than his words. When the results are evident, he will not need to convince anyone. His success will do the talking for him. A man's personal struggles are battles that shape his character, but they should not become open discussions before they are conquered. Every man has areas of weakness, habits he is trying to break, wounds he is trying to heal, or fears he is learning to overcome. However, sharing these unresolved struggles too soon can shift how a woman sees him. A woman naturally seeks security in a man, and if she perceives that he is still wrestling with deep personal issues, she may begin to doubt his stability. When a man openly speaks about struggles he has not yet mastered, he risks being defined by them rather than by his potential. A woman may sympathize with his battles, but over time, she may also start seeing him through the lens of those weaknesses. Instead of viewing him as a leader and a protector, she may unconsciously see him as someone who needs saving. Relationships thrive when a man leads with strength, not when he becomes overly dependent on emotional support to navigate his own growth. And additionally, unresolved struggles can create emotional unpredictability. If a man constantly shares his inner conflicts without clear progress, it may lead to frustration or even emotional exhaustion for the woman in his life. She may want to help, but she is not designed to carry the full weight of his personal transformation. A man must first work through his struggles in solitude, seek wisdom from mentors, and develop the discipline needed to rise above them. Only when he has gained control over his battles can he speak about them with authority, not as a victim, but as a victor. When a man conquers in silence, he earns respect through his actions, not just his words. A man's strength is not found in how much he shares, but in how much he guards. Privacy is not secrecy, it is wisdom. A wise man understands that his words carry weight, and what he chooses to reveal can either build his authority or weaken his position. Leadership is not about exposing every fear, struggle, or ambition. It is about moving with discernment, acting with purpose, and protecting what matters most. A man who speaks too soon about his weaknesses may lose respect. A man who reveals his plans prematurely may sabotage his own success. A man who discusses the secrets of others may lose trust. But a man who operates with quiet confidence, who guards his emotions with discipline, and who builds in silence will command the respect of those around him. Not everything needs to be spoken. Not every thought needs to be shared. The most powerful men in history understood that wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Strength is not in how much you reveal, it is in how much you master yourself. Protect your mind, guard your vision, and let your actions, not just your words, define who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a deep spiritual understanding that a woman walking with God carries with her. A power that is often misunderstood by the world. She is not moved by the passing winds of circumstance. Her steps are rooted in divine purpose, and her life is a testimony of God's grace and plan. But even in this, there are certain things that she must guard with wisdom, for there are things in life that should never be shared with anyone, regardless of the situation or the people who come her way. One of the first things that a woman walking with God must never share is her unwavering faith. Faith is a personal covenant between her and her Creator. It is the foundation of her existence, and when shared too freely or too easily, it risks becoming a target for doubt and opposition. You see, not everyone will understand the depths of her belief, and it is not for the faint-hearted to try and sway her from the path that God has laid before her. Her faith is precious, and she must guard it with diligence. Secondly, her God-given purpose is not to be cast before every passerby. You see, purpose is sacred. It is the reason for her existence and the divine mandate that God has entrusted her with. To share this purpose with those who do not have the capacity to understand or support it is to open the door to confusion and discouragement. There will always be those who try to undermine her destiny, but she must stand firm and resolute, knowing that her purpose is from above, not from the opinions of men. Thirdly, her personal struggles are between her and her Heavenly Father. Yes, she may experience challenges, trials, and moments of weakness, but these are the moments where her strength is refined, where her character is shaped, and where she experiences the closeness of God's presence. She must never allow her struggles to become a public spectacle for others to analyze or judge. These intimate moments are where God molds her into the woman He has called her to be, and she must keep them within the sacred space of prayer and trust in His timing. A relationship with God is a treasure, and it should never be shared in a manner that diminishes its holiness. This relationship is not for public display, but for intimate communion between a child and her father. When a woman shares her sacred moments with God too freely, she risks diminishing the beauty and depth of that connection. It is not to be treated as something casual, but should be preserved in reverence and honor. Likewise, her dreams and visions are a gift from God. She must protect them fiercely, for they hold the keys to her future. Not everyone is equipped to understand the visions God has placed in her heart. There will be those who try to diminish or dismiss her dreams, and this is why she must keep her visions close, sharing them only with those who will encourage her to pursue them and who will support her walk in faith. Her heart is the wellspring of her emotions and her life. A woman walking with God must guard her heart, for it is the seat of her emotions, her desires, and her spiritual life. It is sacred, and she must not give it away freely to those who do not understand its worth. She should not allow others to manipulate or control her emotions, nor should she be swayed by the fleeting opinions of others. Her heart is precious, and it must be treated with the reverence it deserves. Finally, a woman walking with God must set boundaries, and these boundaries should be respected. She should never allow anyone to cross those lines that God has established for her protection. The world will try to push, pressure, and tempt her to compromise, but she must stand firm in her convictions. Her boundaries are not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength and discernment. She knows what is best for her soul, and she must never allow others to violate the sacred space that God has created for her. A woman walking with God is powerful, and her wisdom is unparalleled. She understands that not everything is meant to be shared. She knows that in order to walk in her purpose, she must guard her faith, her dreams, her heart, and her boundaries with all diligence. She knows that the life she is called to live is not for the world to understand, but for God to fulfill in His perfect timing. And so she walks in power, in peace, and in divine purpose, never sharing what should be protected, for she knows that her life is a reflection of God's glory. Her unwavering faith is the foundation of her identity, the invisible thread that holds every part of her life together. It is not a performance for the public eye, nor a subject for debate. It is deeply personal, rooted in her intimate walk with God. This kind of faith is not shaken by the opinions of others, nor is it dependent on the approval of the world. It is built through years of obedience, tears, surrender, and trust in a God she cannot always see, but knows is always present. When a woman walks with God, her faith becomes her anchor. And because of that, it must be protected. She does not need to defend it to those who doubt. She does not need to explain it to those who mock. Her faith is not a topic for casual conversation, because it is not casual. It is sacred. It carries the weight of her history with God. It carries the moments when she almost gave up, but held on anyway. The moments when she heard a whisper from heaven that carried her through the fire. This kind of faith cannot be shared carelessly, because not everyone will understand it, and some will attempt to weaken it. There are those who will try to persuade her to compromise, to question, to dilute what she believes to fit in. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is her lifeline, her compass, and her confidence. Sharing it without wisdom can invite unnecessary warfare. That's why a woman walking with God must guard her faith like a precious jewel. She walks boldly but quietly, letting her life, not her explanations, reveal the strength of what she believes. Her God-given purpose is not a random ambition or a fleeting desire. It is a divine assignment, carefully crafted before she was even formed in her mother's womb. It is not for public consumption or approval. It is sacred, and therefore it must be protected with discernment and guarded with wisdom. A woman walking with God understands that her purpose is not something she stumbled upon, but something she was born to fulfill. And because it carries the weight of heaven's intention, she cannot afford to share it with people who lack spiritual vision. There are those who will hear her speak of her purpose and laugh. There are others who, out of fear or jealousy, will attempt to talk her out of it, downplay it, or convince her that she's aiming too high. That is why she cannot cast her purpose before those who do not walk in alignment with the Spirit of God. She knows the story of Joseph, who shared his dream too soon and ended up in a pit. A woman walking with God learns from this. She understands that timing matters, and so does the company she keeps. She discerns the difference between those sent to push her forward and those sent to pull her back. Purpose is not a performance, it is a pathway. And that pathway often leads through valleys of loneliness, deserts of waiting, and mountains of resistance. Not everyone is built to walk with her through that journey. Some will only want the glory, not the process. That's why she hides her purpose in the presence of God and reveals it only to those God has ordained to walk beside her. It is not secrecy, it is spiritual strategy. Because what is divine must never be delivered to those who do not carry divine understanding. Her personal struggles are not for public entertainment or casual discussion. They are sacred battles fought in the quiet places, often on her knees, where only God sees the full weight of what she carries. A woman walking with God understands that her pain has purpose, her tears have language, and her suffering is often the soil where her next level is being cultivated. She does not expose her wounds to those who cannot help her heal. She knows that not every listener is safe, and not every ear is trustworthy. There is a temptation in this world to overshare, to believe that vulnerability means broadcasting every trial. But she knows that true strength is not in public confession, but in private surrender. She has learned that some people are not seeking to help, but to gather information. Others might use her vulnerability against her. That's why she brings her brokenness to the only one who can make it whole. She knows that God is not intimidated by her struggle. He welcomes it, uses it, and transforms it. In the midst of hardship, she gains revelation, endurance, and spiritual depth. Her struggles birth wisdom that no classroom can teach. They form the oil that will one day anoint others. But she understands the importance of timing. What is still healing should not be handled by unclean hands. Her silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is protection. She knows that her scars are sacred stories, not trophies to be paraded. The woman who walks with God understands that her struggle is not her identity. It is a process. And that process is between her and her Creator. Until the lesson is complete and the testimony is ready, she hides the battle and allows God to do His deepest work in the dark. Her sacred relationship with God is the most intimate and powerful part of her existence. It is the wellspring of her identity, her peace, her wisdom, and her strength. It is not something she displays to impress others or uses to validate her spirituality before men. It is deeply personal, a divine romance nurtured in secret, in stillness, and in surrender. A woman walking with God treasures this relationship the way one would guard a rare and priceless. She knows it was not built in a day. It was forged in pain, in worship, in waiting, and in the relentless pursuit of God's presence. She does not allow her relationship with God to become a performance. It is not a tool for attention or validation. It is not defined by how often she quotes scripture in public or how loud her prayers are before others. It is measured by the consistency of her heart behind closed doors. She walks with him in the quiet of the morning. She listens for his whisper when the world is loud, and she rests in his presence when there's no applause. This kind of relationship cannot be explained. It must be experienced. To share it too freely is to risk trivializing it. Not everyone understands the weight of spiritual intimacy. Some will try to dissect it, others will try to duplicate it, and many will try to discredit it. That's why she protects it. She allows the fruit of the relationship to speak for itself. Her peace confuses people. Her discernment surprises them. Her strength in adversity leaves, but she knows it's not her, it's him. The world may see her glow, but only she knows the fire she walked through to keep that light burning. Her relationship with God is her sanctuary, and she will never allow it to be reduced to something ordinary. Her dreams and visions are not random thoughts or fleeting ambitions. They are divine downloads entrusted to her spirit by the God who formed her. They are sacred glimpses of a future she hasn't yet seen but already believes in. A woman walking with God understands that her dreams are not just for her. They are part of a greater kingdom assignment. That's why she does not speak of them lightly or reveal them to those who do not carry the spiritual capacity to understand them. She knows that every vision carries weight, and not every ear is worthy of hearing what heaven has whispered to her soul. Dreams are delicate when they are still being shaped. In their infancy, they need protection, not exposure. She has learned that speaking too soon can invite opposition too early. She remembers how Joseph's dream was met with envy and how his vision brought betrayal before it brought fulfillment. That's why she is careful. Not secretive out of fear, but discerning out of wisdom. She knows that premature exposure can attract unnecessary warfare, and the enemy is always eager to attack what he sees growing. Her visions are fuel for her perseverance. They guide her through seasons of silence and strengthen her in times of resistance. When no one understands why she keeps pressing forward, it's because they haven't seen what she's seen. Her visions are the reason she doesn't quit, even when it would be easier to settle. They are the blueprint of her destiny, the evidence that God is doing more behind the scenes than people can perceive. And because of that, she speaks them only in prayer, records them in quiet places, and shares them only with those who have the faith to cover her, not the fear to kill what she's carrying. Her heart and emotions are not weaknesses to be exploited. They are sacred instruments through which she discerns, loves, and connects. A woman walking with God understands the value of her heart because she knows it is the place where God speaks, leads, and ministers to her spirit. She does not give it away easily, nor does she allow her emotions to be controlled by temporary people or passing circumstances. Her heart is a treasure, and she guards it with intention because out of it flows the issues of life. She has learned through experience that not everyone deserves access to her inner world. Emotions, when placed in the wrong hands, can be manipulated, twisted, or used to create soul ties that were never ordained by God. That is why she doesn't wear her heart on her sleeve. She is not cold, but she is careful. She understands that feelings are real, but not always reliable. So she submits her emotions to the Spirit of God, allowing Him to filter what is true from what is temporary. She doesn't act on every impulse, nor does she speak from every emotion. She has matured into a place where peace leads her, not pressure. Her emotional strength comes from her ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. She has boundaries, strong ones, not because she is bitter, but because she knows the cost of healing from emotional wounds that should have been prevented. She doesn't apologize for being selective about who gets close to her heart. She knows that love without wisdom is dangerous, and compassion without discernment is costly. Her emotions are powerful, but they are not her master. They are submitted to the one who created her, the one who knows her heart better than she knows it herself. Her boundaries are not walls of fear, they are walls of wisdom. They are not signs of arrogance or pride, They are the evidence of self-respect and divine instruction. A woman walking with God understands that boundaries are not just for her protection, but for her preservation. She has learned that not everyone is meant to have access to her life, her time, her energy, or her spirit. And so she draws lines not to keep people out, but to keep herself aligned with the will of God. She does not apologize for saying no. She does not feel guilty for creating space between herself and anything that threatens her peace, purity, or purpose. Her boundaries are birthed from discernment, not emotion. They are shaped by lessons she's learned in seasons where she allowed too much, stayed too long, or trusted too easily. Those seasons taught her that access is a privilege, not a right. And so now she guards her space like a garden, carefully, intentionally, and prayerfully. She understands that even Jesus had boundaries. He withdrew from the crowd. He chose his inner circle wisely. He didn't answer every question or attend every event. And she follows his example, not out of selfishness, but out of stewardship. Her mind, her body, and her spirit belong to God, and it is her responsibility to protect what he has entrusted to her. People may not always understand her boundaries. Some may call her distant, guarded, or even difficult. But she knows that obedience sometimes looks like separation, and peace sometimes looks like silence. She's not interested in pleasing everyone. She's committed to honoring God. And if that means drawing lines that others don't like, she draws them anyway. Because she knows. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am so grateful you have joined me today, and I can't wait to dive into something that has the power to change your life. There is something powerful about a man who understands that he is always being observed. Whether he realizes it or not, his actions, his words, and even his silence speak volumes. Women in particular have a divine ability to perceive things that often go unnoticed by men. They see beyond what is said and into the essence of who you are. A man may believe that women are drawn only to his status, his wealth, or his looks. But the truth is, a woman's heart seeks deeper things, things that reflect the quality of a man's spirit, his discipline, and his purpose. She watches how you treat people, not just those who can benefit you, but those who can do nothing for you. She notices the way you speak to the janitor, the cashier, the elderly woman crossing the street. Your kindness or lack of it reveals your character. She sees your confidence, not the kind that boasts or demands attention, but the quiet strength that reassures, that leads without force. She notices whether you walk with purpose or hesitation, whether you look people in the eye or hide behind insecurity. She takes note of your grooming, the way you present yourself to the world, not because she is superficial, but because she understands that how a man takes care of himself is a reflection of how he will take care of others. The details, the clean hands, the fresh scent, the neatness of your attire matter more than you think. She perceives your emotional awareness. You may think you are hiding your frustration, your fears, your indifference, but a woman's spirit is designed to sense what is left unsaid. She knows when you are genuinely listening and when you are merely waiting for your turn to speak. She knows when you are emotionally present and when your heart is elsewhere. She observes how you handle stress, because the man who loses control in the storm cannot be trusted to lead in the calm. Do you complain, blame, or panic, or do you face adversity with wisdom, strategy, and faith? A man who masters himself commands respect without demanding it. And above all, she watches for your passion, your vision, your purpose. She is not looking for perfection, but she is looking for direction. A man without purpose is a man without a future. And a man without a future cannot lead a woman into one. The way a man treats others is a silent yet powerful message about who he truly is. A woman watches closely not just how he treats her, but how he interacts with those who have nothing to offer him in return. She notices if he speaks with kindness to the waiter serving his meal, or if he dismisses them as insignificant. She sees if he holds the door open for a stranger, or lets it close behind him without a second thought. These small moments reveal the condition of his heart more than any words he could ever say. A woman pays attention to his patience when dealing with people who might frustrate him. Does he snap at the customer service representative when a mistake is made, or does he handle the situation with grace? She observes whether he respects the elderly, acknowledges children, and treats animals with care. These interactions matter because they reflect the depth of his character. She also notices how he speaks about others when they're not around. A man who constantly criticizes, gossips, or belittles people exposes an insecure and untrustworthy nature. If he disrespects his mother, speaks poorly of his ex, or mocks his friends behind their backs, she understands that he lacks the integrity to honor those in his life. Even in moments of conflict, she observes whether he argues to understand or simply to win. A man who listens, who values the dignity of others, even in disagreement, shows emotional maturity. He does not use his words as weapons, nor does he use his strength to intimidate. A woman instinctively knows that the way a man treats the least among him is a glimpse into how he will treat her when no one is watching. A woman notices confidence before a man even speaks. It's in the way he walks, the way he stands, the way he carries himself. She observes if he enters a room with quiet assurance or if he shrinks into the background, hesitant and unsure. Confidence is not arrogance. It is the steady presence of a man who knows who he is without needing to prove it. She sees the difference between a man who demands attention and a man who naturally commands it through his energy and self-assuredness. She watches how he handles himself in conversation. Does he make eye contact or does he avoid her gaze? Does he speak with clarity or does he stumble over his words, unsure of his own thoughts? A man who believes in himself does not need to dominate a conversation. He listens just as much as he speaks. He does not feel the need to impress or seek approval because he is secure in his identity. She notices how he responds to challenges. When he is faced with uncertainty, does he react with fear and hesitation, or does he approach it with composure and resilience? A confident man does not let failure define him, nor does he allow setbacks to break his spirit. He moves forward with purpose, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity to grow. She sees how he treats himself. A man with confidence does not speak negatively about himself or downplay his abilities. He does not seek validation through external achievements or by comparing himself to others. Instead, he walks in his own truth, comfortable in his skin. A woman instinctively recognizes that a man's confidence is not just about how he presents himself to the world, but how he truly sees himself when no one is watching. A woman notices the details a man often overlooks. She sees the state of his hands, whether his nails are clean and trimmed or rough and neglected. She notices if his breath is fresh or if he speaks with an odor that signals carelessness. She pays attention to his scent, whether he carries the natural freshness of someone who values cleanliness or the stale presence of someone who does the bare minimum. Hygiene is not about vanity. It is a reflection of self-respect. She observes the effort he puts into grooming, not because she expects perfection, but because it tells her how much he values presentation. His hair, whether long or short, should be well maintained, not left in a state of disorder as if he has given up on himself. His facial hair, whether clean shaven or a full beard, should be intentional, not something he neglects until it becomes unkempt. The way he dresses matters, not in terms of expensive clothing, but in how well he carries what he wears. Wrinkled shirts, dirty shoes, and ill-fitting clothes suggest a lack of discipline, while a man who takes pride in his appearance communicates self-awareness and intention. She notices the small things. whether his skin looks healthy, whether he takes care of his teeth, whether his clothes have a fresh scent. These are not superficial observations. They are signs of discipline, self-care, and order. A man who cannot manage the basics of his own body and appearance sends a message, consciously or not, that he lacks attention to detail. A woman instinctively understands that the way a man treats himself is a preview of how he will treat other areas of his life, including relationships, responsibilities, and even the way he will care for her. A woman notices the way a man processes his emotions, even when he believes he is hiding them. She sees the subtle changes in his expression, the tension in his jaw, the way his energy shifts when something upsets him. He may think his silence is strength, but she knows when he is suppressing emotions rather than dealing with them. A man who lacks emotional awareness becomes unpredictable, reacting to situations without understanding the source of his frustration. She watches how he handles disappointment, whether he shuts down, lashes out, or processes it with maturity. She observes his ability to connect not just with her, but with the people around him. A man who is emotionally aware listens with presence rather than waiting for his turn to speak. He does not dismiss feelings as irrational or overreact when confronted with difficult conversations. She notices if he deflects with humor, avoids vulnerability, or allows himself to be honest about what he feels. A woman does not expect a man to be overly emotional, but she expects him to be in tune with himself enough to communicate with clarity. She sees how he responds to the emotions of others. Does he acknowledge pain with empathy, or does he dismiss it because it makes him uncomfortable? When she expresses frustration, does he try to fix everything immediately, or does he take the time to understand what she truly needs? A man who lacks emotional awareness may provide solutions, but a man who possesses it provides presence. A woman knows that a man's ability to process his emotions shapes how he will handle challenges, relationships, and the weight of responsibility. His emotional maturity determines not only how he leads, but also how safe she feels in his presence. A woman watches how a man carries himself when life applies pressure. It is easy to be composed when everything is going well, but true character is revealed in moments of stress, setbacks, and uncertainty. She notices if he reacts impulsively, allowing frustration to control him, or if he maintains his composure and approaches challenges with a clear mind. A man who panics in difficulty shows that he lacks the emotional and mental discipline to lead himself, let alone others. She observes how he speaks about his problems. Does he complain endlessly, blaming circumstances and people for his struggles? Or does he take responsibility and seek solutions? A man who constantly sees himself as a victim of life's hardships lacks the mindset to overcome them. A woman respects a man who acknowledges difficulties but refuses to be defined by them. She admires the man who stands firm, adapting and strategizing rather than breaking under pressure. She notices his patience when things do not go as planned. When faced with delays, obstacles, or disappointments, does he react with anger, or does he step back and assess the situation with wisdom? His ability to stay calm in the face of adversity reveals his level of self-mastery. She sees whether he allows stress to make him bitter and distant, or whether he remains steady and present despite the weight he carries. She also watches how he treats others when under pressure. A man who loses his temper and lashes out at those around him, whether in traffic, at work, or in personal relationships, exposes an unstable foundation. A woman knows that how a man handles stress is how he will handle the challenges of a relationship, family, and leadership. His ability to navigate pressure with wisdom and stability determines whether he is a man she can trust to stand strong when life becomes difficult. A woman notices not just whether a man listens, but how he listens. She pays attention to whether he is truly engaged in the conversation or simply waiting for his turn to speak. She sees if his eyes drift to his phone, if his responses are vague and disconnected, or if he interrupts before she has finished her thoughts. A man's ability to listen is not just about hearing words, it is about valuing the person speaking to him. She watches his body language. Does he maintain eye contact, lean in slightly and show interest, or does he seem distracted and restless? A woman can sense when a man is present in the moment versus when his mind is elsewhere. She notices if he asks thoughtful questions, showing that he is processing what she says rather than formulating a quick reply. A man who listens well makes a woman feel heard, understood, and respected. She also observes how he responds when she speaks about her feelings. Does he dismiss her emotions as overreacting, rush to fix everything without understanding, or does he take the time to acknowledge and validate what she is expressing? A man who listens with patience and empathy creates a space where a woman feels safe to share her thoughts without fear of judgment. She notices how he listens to others, his friends, his family, and even strangers. A man who only listens when he has something to gain reveals a lack of genuine care. A woman respects a man who listens because he values people, not just because he wants to appear interested. The way a man listens speaks volumes about his emotional intelligence, his level of respect, and ultimately how much he values the relationships in his life. A woman notices when a man moves through life with direction. She sees if he wakes up with a sense of purpose or simply drifts from day to day without a vision for his future. Passion is not just about a career or a hobby. It is about the fire within him that drives his actions. A man with purpose is intentional, disciplined, and committed to something greater than himself. His passion gives him an energy that is impossible to ignore. She observes whether he speaks with enthusiasm about his goals or if he makes excuses for why he is stagnant. A man who lacks direction often finds himself lost in distractions, wasting time on things that do not serve his growth. A woman can sense when a man has settled into complacency, just as she can sense when he is striving towards something meaningful. She admires the man who is working toward a vision, no matter how big or small, because it shows that he refuses to let life happen to him. He is happening to life. She watches how he handles failure. A man with purpose does not allow setbacks to define him. He adapts, learns, and keeps moving forward. He does not seek pity or validation for his struggles. Instead, he uses them as fuel to refine his path. A woman respects the man who sees obstacles as stepping stones rather than excuses to give up. She notices whether his passion is self-centered or if it contributes to something beyond himself. A man whose purpose serves only his ego may achieve success, but he will lack fulfillment. A man who pursues a purpose that benefits others carries a deeper sense of meaning. A woman is drawn to a man who is going somewhere in life because she knows that walking beside him will lead to something greater. A man is always being observed, not for judgment, but for understanding. The way he carries himself, the way he treats others, the way he listens, and the way he navigates challenges all speak louder than his words ever could. A woman does not simply see what is on the surface. She perceives the depth of his character, the strength of his mind, and the discipline of his spirit. A man who lacks awareness of these things will move through life blindly, wondering why he is not respected, admired, or trusted. But a man who understands that every action, every word, and even every silence communicates something will begin to move with greater purpose. He will refine himself, not for the sake of impressing others, but because he knows that his value is in his discipline, his integrity, and his commitment to growth. The world does not admire a man simply for existing. It respects a man who builds himself into something greater. Women do not seek perfection, but they recognize a man who is intentional about his life. The question is not whether you are being noticed, it is what you are being noticed for. Every man must ask himself, am I presenting the version of myself that reflects strength, wisdom, and purpose? Or am I unconsciously revealing my weaknesses, insecurities, and lack of direction? The truth is simple. Greatness is not given, it is built. And the man who understands that everything he does is shaping his reputation, his relationships, and his legacy is the man who will rise above the rest.